Hello, my name is Owen and welcome to a very special video. It's our mid-year check-in for 2025, where I'm going to talk about some of my favorite books that I've read so far this year. Can you believe, though, that 2025 is over halfway done? Can you believe it? Doesn't it feel like we just only began it? Well, time flies when you're having fun, and oh boy, are we having fun this year. Across everything, right? Isn't this just a fun year? Aren't you enjoying yourself? I know I am. But overall, I would say it's been an interesting reading journey for me so far. Just to get a little bit into about the personals before we start talking about specific books, I'm behind where I thought I'd be in terms of quantity of books read. We're at 17 books read so far this year, a little less than a 3-book average per month. I thought I'd be, in the mid-20s because I usually read 3 books a month, but sometimes 4 or 5. I've not cracked 3 in a month so far. And it's not like I'm reading super long books. I feel like my variation in terms of genres and authors has been very good this year so far. That is something I'll pat myself on the back on. And I'm reading some longer books, no really doorstops other than Wind and Truth at the start of the year. A lot of shorter books. I would say I don't really know why I'm not reading as many books as I normally do. I really don't feel like I'm in a slump. I've been reading a lot of books at the same time, which I know I've said in the past is probably a detriment because it kind of spreads focus a little bit, but I really don't think that's the issue. I feel like maybe it's because I really have a set plan of what I'm going to read next. Like I do sometimes monthly videos at the start where I'm like, this is what I'm going to read, and sometimes I follow it, sometimes I don't. I feel like I'm at a healthy pace though, where I'm letting books call to me, and then I read them. And as an overview, I read a lot of books that I really enjoyed, a lot of books that were maybe forgettable but still an enjoyable experience. Not very many stinkers, I would say. There are very few books that I read this year that were I disliked it, it put me in a slump. Really none of that so far. More so that just these books are just taking me longer to get through, and maybe it's because maybe I haven't had that many home run hitters. But we're gonna be talking about some of those home run hitters today, the books that really wowed me. And we're gonna do a top 3 books that I've read so far this year. And why top 3, why not top 5? Well, it's because I only read 17 books, right? So we're taking 5, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel, right? All right, but like I said, none of the books that I've read so far this year have been bad. It's mostly a lot of them just have been forgettable, maybe. So maybe that would help me in the second half if I start reading a lot more winners for me. But who knows? But like I said, I like my choices. I don't feel like I'm picking the wrong kinds of books. I feel like I have good variation. I'm not stuck in a genre slump. Certainly not. I just think maybe it's just not been a focus for me. Maybe it's not been a priority in my life, which is completely okay. Hobbies, they ebb and flow. Maybe in a couple months I'll be obsessed with reading and you can't stop me. But for now, we're in a healthy place with our reading journey. But before we talk about our top 3, I do want to give some honorable mentions of some books that I did genuinely enjoy this year. We're not going to go super in depth. Kindred by Octavia Butler. I enjoyed that read. It's kind of like a sci-fi historical time travel book. A very unique concept. I thought it was very well done. A lot of people love that book, and I thought it was worth the hype that I was expecting from it. The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. Just recently finished that a couple weeks ago. That is my only new release that I'm going to be talking about today at all. I had my issues with it. I don't think it was a perfect book. Perhaps it was a little bit over long. But I did enjoy kind of reading Abercrombie again. And I don't consider myself an Abercrombie super fan or anything like that, but reading that book made me want to revisit First Light Trilogy and maybe finally get to that sequel trilogy that he wrote. That I know you got a lot of you guys in the comments of the Devil's Review said that the sequel trilogy is probably his best work. And it made me excited about reading a fantasy series in a way that I haven't been, except maybe like Robin Hood books. I've been always excited to read those, but I just haven't been feeling the urge to read a lot of fantasy. And oddly enough, reading The Devils made me want to read Malazan, start getting back in my Malazan-ness, right? Because for those of you that know, I love Malazan, but for those of you that know, I started a reread of the series in June of 2 years ago. And we're not even done with book 5. We're actually in the middle of book 5. And I had it annotated and everything. And I did a video on the first part, and then it just went away. And I don't know if I'm going to be making Malazan videos anymore. I don't know if there is really That's really the audience I've cultivated at this point. And also it's just, I haven't been thinking about it enough to like say anything intelligent, but I think if I started reading again, I'd feel the urge to make more videos about Malazan. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the Devils kind of sparked an interest in me in a specific flavor of fantasy that maybe I haven't tasted in a while. And for that reason, I think it deserves a shout out, because also it was an enjoyable story, good fun times. And then also I want to give a nod to Stoner, the book Stoner. I thought that was, also didn't think it was a perfect book. I didn't love it necessarily, but I liked the vibes of it, the kind of the slower paced, real character study type book. It's the kind of pace that some people might find boring, but I find welcome every once in a while. Very plotting pace, just this man's life as he's growing, and it's just a real picture of like someone who could exist in the real world, this character study of this Stoner character. And I thought it was really interesting, the structure of it and what it was about. So I just wanted to shout that out. I enjoyed that book. But those aren't the best books that I've read so far this year. And let's start with number 3. It's going to be Carrie, Sodto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And for those of you that have watched the channel for any number of time, you know that I do like Taylor Jenkins Reid. And what I've said in the past is she's a great slump breaker author. Whenever I'm in the mood, or not in the mood rather, to be reading, I know that if I pick up a Taylor Jenkins Reid book, it's going to be tight. It's going to be intentional with its storytelling. It's going to have solid characters and a solid storyline, well written, just solid books that she puts out. And I've read, I think, like 5 of her books now, and I've enjoyed all of them to varying degrees, but I think Carrie, Sodto was my favorite of all of them. I think Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo beats it just in terms of like emotional impact and like the powerfulness of the story. But Carrie, Sodto is Back. It's just a fun sports book, which is also not something I really delve into very often. But the sports setting, the tennis world, the exploration of that, how we use like sports broadcasters and their commentary about people, how that may shape an athlete's perception of themselves and their career and their legacy, mixed with Taylor Jenkins Reid, just solid writing style, very intentional writing, great characters, tight story, which is so important, is when like me feeling, this is something new that I've discovered, like when I feel like the author knows exactly what they want to be doing, I like a book more. And maybe it's something that like I've just been attuned to more the more that I read, like some, not to say that there's parts where I read a book I'm like the author clearly has no idea what they're writing, but it is a tangible thing where it's like there's no filler in where the story is going. Not that there's not slower moments or character moments or just like relaxing moments necessarily. It just feels like everything is put in there, not even to further the plot, but for a specific reason, and it pays off in a certain way. Taylor Jenkins Reid is great at that, and I think Carrie, Sodto is Back is my favorite of her books that I've read. And at the time, I was a little bit of a slump, wasn't as interested in reading. That book was a slam dunk, exactly what I needed at the time, and very much an enjoyable story. I read Malibu Rising last month or the month before, I don't even remember at this point, and it kind of has a Carrie Sodto cameo in that, which I enjoyed. But I saw that book overall very enjoyable. Second favorite book that I read so far this year is kind of a curveball. It is A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen L. Peck. This is actually a short story, just over 100 pages. I'm in a book club with a couple of my friends, and it was recommended that we read this one next. Literally never heard of it. I'm not a short story boy, never seek them out on my own, but I was really, really intrigued by the concept of this story. And it's basically about a man who dies, and he wakes up, and he finds out like the religion, he's a Mormon, I believe he's a Mormon, but he realizes like his religion was wrong, and all major religions are wrong, and the specific religion that was right, his punishment for not believing in their one true religion is that he basically is in this library with an infinite seemingly number of books, and he has to find the one with his life story, and that's the only way he can get out of hell. And seemingly impossible task, and it's basically him coming to grips with that, meeting the people in hell with him, and how this develops. Like, you're basically given a task that will take you millions of years to complete. That's your punishment of hell. What would that do? What would that do to you? What would be the people's like reaction to that? How would things build upon themselves? And I thought it was expertly done in terms of like how a human would react to that scenario, because he goes through all the different things. Like, he gets into hell and he starts looking for his life story, right? Because that's what you're supposed to do. But it takes so long. It takes months eventually to give up on it. You make a community, there's different evolutions of the community, and eventually there's this character growth, and it's very, I don't know, it's kind of a psychological, I don't know, it's very strange, but it was a very interesting concept to me, and I thought the author explored that concept very realistically, and I kind of liked getting like exploring this world of this hell and the communities that are built from it, and how these people are reacting to each other, and how they come to grips with the fact that the world that they lived in, they believed in a religion that was wrong. Like how do you face that? Like, and what if, and it makes you ask the question, like, what if the afterlife was like this? Like, how crazy would that be, essentially? It's kind of hard to explain, but if you think the concept sounds interesting, just know that the author executed the concept perfectly. And perhaps you'll understand why I liked it. But I just thought it was a real surprise. It's very rare that a book literally comes out of nowhere and kind of gobsmacks me like that. And I think its biggest flaw with me was that it was a short story, only 100 pages long. I could have explored the intricacies of that situation for a lot longer, I think. But in that way, it's kind of, I like that it's kind of contained and it's kind of small. Then I didn't get as much as I wanted. It left me wanting more, right? That's what you got to do. You got to leave the audience wanting more. But A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen L. Peck, that was my number 2. Number 1 should be of no surprise to anybody. It's cheating, but it's the first 2 books of the Tawny Man trilogy. I just finished Golden Fool, and Fool's Errand I finished last month. I just think that Robin Hobb is just doing everything I want her to do with a character of Fitz and the evolution of these characters in this world. And what I like about her, and I've said it a lot of times in the past too, is that she's not afraid to take things very, very slow. And keep an eye out for my Golden Fool review, where I'll go more in depth about that book specifically. But there are major stretches of these books where you were thinking, like, what is the book about though? Like, what's the plot? What's the adventure they're going to go on? What's the quest? And specifically in Golden Fool, like, you're just waiting for it for the entire thing, essentially, because it's not about like the action. It's not about the battle. It's not about the thing they need to slay or the war or the assassination plot or anything like that. It's really just a character exploration of Fitz. And I think the jump from him as a child into like a teenager and a young adult in the Farseer trilogy, the jump from him to adulthood, I thought in Fool's Errand was expertly done. How his trauma aged and matured, improved in some ways, worsened in others, I thought was very realistic. He's a very, very, very well done character. I think the best written character that I've ever read ever, because he is so flawed, because he is frustrating, but I feel like all of his frustrations that I have with him, because I was there when he experienced the trauma, what he went through, you completely understand where he's coming from. And there's a lot of complex characters in here. And what I liked about the continuation of this trilogy in Golden Fool, we're meeting characters from the first trilogy as they've changed and they've aged, and the dynamics are shifting and they're evolving. And there's just there's a lot of like great like soap opera-y moments, just pure drama of like the secrets that have been kept from trilogy to trilogy and how those come unveiled, and the confrontations between characters and letting them say things that they've been holding in for so long. It sometimes it does feel soap opera, just pure drama, reality show, like, oh, I can't wait for these 2 characters to meet and to start like to hash out their old grievances. And Hobb gives you that satisfaction and allows you to have those scenes. I mean, she teases you a lot too, where it's like, oh, are these 2 characters going to reunite after a long period of not seeing each other? Oh my gosh, are they? Oh, they don't. But then she'll give you something of a conversation. And that's the best part. It's just conversations between these characters that we know and love, and we got to know so deeply through Robin Hobb's writing. Just seeing them interact, even though there is no pressing plot or you don't really know where the story is going, I just live for these character interactions and sitting in this world. And I think Fool's Errand did a great reintroduction to our characters. I think Golden Fool put these characters back into a very interesting situation where they can interact with each other more frequently, more deeply. If the 3rd book in this trilogy, like, I don't even know what it's called. I don't remember. If it hits the spot, though, might be the greatest trilogy of books that I've ever read in my life. That's how much I love these characters. And it's built off the back of Farseer trilogy, which I love and might be one of my favorites also. But it's just, these Fitz books are just so chef's kiss to me. I would be surprised if I read something in the second half of the year that dethrones these two books, and probably the trilogy as well. Just fantastic fantasy books. Robin Hobb is a fantastic author, and I will never stop raving about it. But that's basically it there. Other than that, a lot of the other books I read, like I said, I enjoyed, but I feel like a lot of the books I'm reading, I'll just forget the nitty-gritties about them. It becomes a book that, it's like, oh, I read that, but then you really can't say much more about it. Maybe that's where I'm at. And maybe that explains why I'm not reading as many books as I would like to. But you know what? Sometimes it just happens, right? There's so many books out there that a lot of them are just going to be okay. But overall, I have been enjoying them while I was reading them, which is the most important thing. What I want to hear from you, okay, and this is very important. Let me know your favorite books of the year so far. Maybe I'll check some of them out. Because like I said, I don't really have a plan for what I'm going to read for the rest of the year. Perhaps you will give me a plan. Perhaps you can help me because I am lazy. And I also do genuinely want to know, what are the favorite books of the year? Are there any new releases that you've read that you're really liking so far? I'm in the middle of Emily Henry's new romance book, and I am really enjoying it. I wouldn't be surprised if when I finish that book, that book would have made this list. Does that make sense? But that's a new release this year. And I'm also going to read Taylor Jenkins Reid's new book, Atmosphere. I'm on the waiting list for that. So that's another new release that came out this year that I plan on reading at the end of this year. But let me know favorite books you read this year, if there's any new releases that came out this year that surprised you, that you liked, and in general, your thoughts. Checking in. How's your reading been? Have you been reading at all? Did you forsake reading? And if so, impressive you watched the 17 long minute video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you liked this video and you would like to see more like in the future. And as always, thank you for sticking around. And here's to a great second half of 2025.